Hello and welcome to the Ashcan Edition on Graph Policy TV. I'm Brant Lewis, and today we're jumping to the swinging city of Jump City with some cool cats. Luckily, I'm joined by the Fab Freak, Al Ewing, the writer of The Man, the Myth, the Legend, To Know Him Is to Love Him, Metamorpho with artist Steve Lieber. Al, thanks so much for joining me. How are you doing?
Well, I'm doing okay. Just cracking on with writing some Metamorpho.
Love to hear it. So usually when I do the podcast with new guests, I like to ask them a couple of questions, get to know them a bit better. So if you were trapped on a desert island and you could only bring one music album with you, what would it be and why?
Probably, I'm going to be boring and probably pick a compilation. Um, I mean, I think probably it'd be something like the Pet Shop Boys. They did they've done a few albums. They did a nice box set. I think it was called Pop Art. But I remember that one had a whole bunch of the greats on. Of course, that was quite a while ago. So since then, they've probably put together a more comprehensive thing. But yeah, I think just a big, solid collection of the Pet Shop Boys would probably suit me down to the ground.
You're not gonna bring that old Metamorpho record with you to the island.
That's like one song. It's a great song, but it's only one song. I mean, I'm sure your listeners have all heard this one. It's I believe it was what was it, Arthur Kolb? Let
I
me look
think
that up.
so.
Yeah, Arthur Kolb for or possibly Albert Kolb. Uh, hang on. I'm not gonna rest until I actually look this up. Uh, yeah, it was no, I have no idea. But whoever it was, he did the Metamorpho TV theme show, which I believe was not used often, but it is great. It's on YouTube if you want to listen to it.
hmm
And yeah, that would be a pick for a desert island, but it's one song. It's about 3 minutes. I would go insane very quickly listening to that over and over again.
So if you could transform into any element, what would it be and why?
I assume I'd still be like moving around having done so. Probably something like something reasonably flexible and inoffensive, something like silicon rubber. If it's just like that's more of a compound than an element. So if it's just the one element, I mean, I guess something like carbon. You know, um, none of them are good options. They're all pretty. There's not much you can do as just like a single element. That's better than the human body.
That
So yeah, I'd probably want something pretty flexible and useful. Sorry,
that's
these are
totally
bad answers.
no, they're good answers. They're fascinating answers. So, kind of moving on now to the main topic at hand. Metamorpho, the Fab Freak. To know him is to love him. An iconic DC character in his own right. So, can you talk a little bit about how that came to be with you taking on the character?
Well, I mean, it started off as a conversation basically when I was kind of introducing myself to the sort of head honchos at DC, and the kind of um, basically just answering some questions about like where I saw myself with the company having sort of no longer being so exclusive to the House of Ideas. Uh, and basically, Katie Kubert, my editor on Metamorpho, was in that call, and she basically, while we were chatting about like what I'd want to do and who I'd want to work on, and I'd sort of expressed the desire to like, obviously, it'd be great to work on any of the biggies if that wouldn't be stealing anybody's job, but like, really, I was inspired by when Kirby had come over and worked on Jimmy Olsen, or some of the other great old characters from the DC explosion or like sort of the 60s. And while I was kind of talking about like those lesser known out of the way characters, Katie mentioned Metamorpho as somebody she could really see me doing. And I immediately just perked up. I was immediately like, oh really, Metamorpho's available. Because I have such great memories of that kind of 1960s comic with from Bob Haney and Ramona Fredon. And also, from my own childhood, things like Batman and the Outsiders, Justice League Europe. Metamorpho's been in a whole load of stuff over the years, and uh, yeah, made a huge impression. But in particular, the idea of like really getting, working on Metamorpho, kind of getting his groove back, really trying to dive into what made that original '60s series so great. It just seemed like I was all in. I was all in immediately on Metamorpho. I was, the cogs were already turning. So yeah, I worked up a pitch based on that, and here we are.
I love to hear it, and I'd say talking about that classic series by Frodon and Haney, it's just so good. It's just such peak classic Silver Age in a way that feels so different than even the other comics DC was doing at the time.
It absolutely is. It's like you can see it's a kind of response to what was going on in the industry, but also pushing it forward, pushing it into its own thing, taking that kind of camp style that people were kind of equating with comics at the time, but also just really kind of getting into almost superhero as sitcom. There's something really great about the Metamorpho kind of comes in with his entire supporting cast, all of them just in place, all of them ready to go, fresh out of the box, and it's just a perfect like storytelling engine. These characters, and then when you add, you know, Urania Blackwell later, the Fab Five is very much complete. And that is the Fab Five we're going to be telling stories about.
Mhm. So let's talk a little about what Metamorpho's role in the universe is now, because for a while, obviously, you had the original series, the Outsiders, Justice League, and the Terrifics. I mean, it's been a while since he's really had a huge spotlight in a book.
Yeah, I mean, this is basically it's a chance for readers to really get to know Metamorpho kind of on his own. He's been a supporting character for so long. He's been like one of a team for so long. Um, and of course, you always catch glimpses of him and his supporting cast. You get a pretty good look at Rex Mason himself, but his supporting cast has to be kind of filtered through the needs of the team book. Um, Whereas this is an opportunity to kind of get to know Metamorpho and his world, kind of entirely unfiltered, entirely sort of without having to serve that larger need. We can just get into some really kind of, I mean, for want of a better word, some really groovy stuff. Just a really good time, just a really kind of fun, fast moving, free flowing sort of comic. Um, that's really the aim of the game is for this one at least is to just have a good time to kind of to do a comic that anybody can read, like all ages. Anybody can like sit down with, put their feet up, take their mind off the many troubles of the world, relax with Metamorpho, and just have a really good time. And it's a good time to write it. It always sort of takes the edge off the day when I get to sit down and write a bit of Metamorpho. Um, doesn't mean it's easy to write, but it is fun to write.
I do think groovy is the best word to describe it because when I read the Vance copy, I was just very much in love with that very retro feel of the style, the writing, very much like taking the elements of that Silver Age aspect and aesthetic while modernizing it in a way that doesn't feel hollow.
That is kind of the idea to sort of take that tone and not do a pastiche of it. Definitely not do like a parody of it. We're very sincere about our love for these original comics, and we really hope that shines through. But we don't want to do a pastiche of it either. We don't want to just give readers the impression that they could just go back and get the back issues and sort of, enjoy themselves that way. We want to take that Silver Age vibe, move it very much onto the present. Take everywhere the take our own sense of humor. Um, I was just doing a Bob Haney impression, and Steve was just doing a kind of Romano Fredon impression. I feel like we'd both of us be lesser for that because there's only one Bob Haney, there's only one Romano Fredon. Um, while imitation may be the sincerest form of flattery, it's also not as good as it's not as sincere a form of flattery as like taking everything we love about those creators and attempting to do all of that in our own way.
I agree with that because it's very much more about evoking the spirit than replicating it.
Yeah, exactly.
So I would love to talk a bit about working with Steve Lieber, who obviously has drawn Metamorpho in the past with Jimmy Olsen, which also had a very similar vibe as well.
Yeah, Steve is an absolute joy to work with. I really do. And having read um, that Jimmy Olsen and a whole bunch of his other comics, I'm obviously, I obviously have that knowledge that I am working with one of the great artistic geniuses of the field. And so obviously I want to give my A game. I want to give my absolute best to this. And so far, cross fingers. It may all fall apart with the script that I'm about to hand in, but so far, cross fingers. I feel like I'm keeping up, and we're both having a great time on it. I will say it's a vast compliment to put me in the same bracket as Matt Fraction, especially on that book. I was a huge fan of that whole Jimmy Olsen series when it was coming out. So really getting to work with Steve is, you know, it's absolutely wonderful. It's great that I get to kind of see the magic happen um, up close and personal like this.
Yeah, I think kind of going back to what worked so well with for Dawn was the fact that she was a cartoonist. She wasn't the, traditional tight tights and cape superhero type artist, much like how Lieber is.
Yeah, I mean, I guess they do have that in common in that all of the characters just come alive. Um, in that Steve will throw in a lot of I guess what I'd call them sort of bits of business, like sort of little kind of visual touches, very sometimes very very subtle, sometimes like just hilarious stuff. Um, but like every he's this master of character work, so that it's not so much that I'm sort of I write the script, I kind of write down what all the characters are feeling and like how they're emoting. Steve treats it as if he's got a cast of actors and they've all got their own takes on the material, and it's like so he'll come out with just expression work and little bits of background business that I would never have considered. That I didn't write down. I'd never have thought of. Um, and it just elevates everything so much. It's just wonderful to see it all. One of my favorite things to do is the lettering draft for an issue of Metamorpho because that's when I get to see all of the art as a whole and I get to go through it and I get to sort of tweak. I tweak the original script to kind of like very little tweaking is involved because Steve lays out the balloons as well. Um, So I don't change very much. I just sort of trim the fat. If I think of a better way to say something, I'll do that. If I think a joke could be punched up, I'll punch it up. But generally, what I'm doing is I'm just looking at Steve's amazing art and looking at all of the details that I missed as they kind of came by page into the inbox. It's absolutely wonderful.
Mhm. Yeah, and I definitely think with a book with such larger than life characters, you really need artists who can really capture that larger than life energy when
One
depicting
hundred
that.
percent. 100%.
So, what is your favorite thing that Steve has drawn so far in the first issue?
Oh, in the first issue, I was gonna say,
I'm not
we're
going to have you spoil.
yeah. There are spoilers. I'm a big fan of something he does, which is again, this is one of those little things I didn't ask for, which is anytime Metamorpho kind of changes into a specific element, part of the transformation, there's a little he draws that little kind of chemical symbol as like a little chunk of the periodic table, just sort of as part of the transformation. And until people are gonna hear me talk about this, but until they actually see it, they won't fully get it. But like, it's a wonderful little touch. It's just beautiful. Aside from that, I've got to say I love what he does with Java. Um, just like all the expression work on Java is just kind of it's it's Steve, one of Steve's favorite characters, and you can tell.
Oh, yeah, there's that great bit where his face is just looking around, and then it's like the bit of the half
Oh
face,
yes,
and then that is just perfect
yeah. If you
motion.
look at Steve's Blue Sky, he's dropped that panel for everybody to see because it's an amazing panel. It's fantastic. Um, I love that. So I'm just sort of I'm trying to kind of write more moments like that and sort of really play into the physical comedy as the thing goes on.
Mhm. So, can you talk a little bit more about what each of the cast roles are in the book? Because obviously, at the beginning of the issue, you have that little block, much like the original series, showcasing the cast with information.
We do. We're doing that thing where we show everybody's face plus the villain. Um, but yeah, basically, I mean, one by one, Rex, to know him is to love him and all of that. Um, if you know who Metamorpho is. If not, you soon will. Then you've got Sapphire, who's his sort of long-suffering girlfriend, fiance, slash wife. We've settled on fiance. I should mention we've settled on a particular shape of the cast. Um, it doesn't quite line up with the with uh, continuity as people are by now used to it. There is a reason for that. We will get into it. The kind of out of universe reason is basically I wanted the full supporting cast to all be alive, and I wanted to kind of I guess dial things back a little bit from dial things back to a particular point in time. Um, the in-world reason, there is an in-world reason. We will explain it all. It'll be a fantastic adventure. Nobody will be disappointed by this. But if you're wondering why Rex and Sapphire aren't married, that's why. Um, and also so we can have a proper love triangle, which is where Urania Blackwell, aka Element Gal, comes in. Not Element Girl anymore, but there's also an Element Woman who exists and will be in the fullness of time guest starring. So we can't, I thought I'd put a little ring a ding on it. Um, so yeah, Element Gal is now an agent of Shade. The so no longer working for the CIA, now working for a proper super agency that's taken a special interest in Metamorpho for reasons which will become apparent. Um, and yeah, she and Sapphire form a kind of love triangle. One of them wants Metamorpho to get the long promised cure for the Metamorpho condition. The other thinks Metamorpho is groovy as he is, and Almond Gal loves Urania loves being an Almond person. Really enjoys all of the fab freaky powers. Is a big adrenaline junkie. Uh, going on all sorts of missions, all thrills and spills. Very much kind of the opposite of previous versions. I kind of wanted to rethink the character a little bit and have her be kind of a real match for Rex and a real kind of it's like she's almost a kind of secondary protagonist. Rex is still, the main person in the book. Everything revolves around him. But like part of Urania's role is to sort of what Rex could be if he committed completely to the Metamorpho lifestyle, which of course would mean uncommitting to Sapphire. So it'd be a big decision. Meanwhile, we have Java, who's sort of kind of like we're very much taking a cue from like Jeff Lemire and Mark Russell, who are I think the last two people who really got under Java's skin. Again, why is he not in prison? We will explain. But he's not. We're very much treating him as the sort of less just a bozo, more, wise, sad, quite sorrowful. Still really like Sapphire, but like as a fan, almost doesn't really see himself in very protective, but not in a kind of romantic mode with her, which kind of leaves him free to sort of play the field a little, which is interesting. I'm kind of so we might see what goes on there. But yeah, Java's hilarious because obviously he hates Rex, he hates Stag. Um, there's less of the kind of we're dialing back the kind of in the '60s. It was very much a sort of very much master and servant role. This time they're more of a bickering odd couple. But obviously Java is still under Stag's thumb, much as Rex is. And yes, Simon Stagg himself, the billionaire you love to loathe, the world's greatest, the world's number one think. Um, a real sleazebag and a joy to write. And he's ostensibly looking for the Metamorpho cure. We all know he's not. We all know he doesn't want to lose um, his number one lackey. Uh, so there's a real sense with Stag of like he's just an absolute. Oh, and he's constantly also we're keeping some of the stuff in the '60s about how he was a sort of genius industrialist, except he thinks he's a genius. Not so much. The Stag genius is constantly referenced by him. So yeah, he's a laugh and a half. They're all really fun, and they all bounce off each other because with every character they all relate to each other in a different way. Um, so yeah, put any two of them in a room together, and the reaction begins to happen.
So, what's been the wildest, or at least your favorite word that you discovered when writing all of the narration captions?
Favorite word? I haven't discovered anything. I've been pulling from quite an old box of toys. I am a big fan of Ginchi as a synonym for groovy. Um, I haven't gone quite so far into the '60s groovy slang as I could go. I am a there's a word that I like even more than Ginchi, which is yvoorg, which is groovy spelled backwards. And there was a comic called Bunny Queen of the In Crowd. This wasn't DC. This was I want to say it was either Chilton or Dell or some fly by night indie publisher, but it was very much. Um, really leaping on the kind of, you know, 50-year-old men desperate to like work out how the kids talk. And some of the slang you get from that is just, and like the longer we go, the more comfortable I'll feel dipping into this particular like cauldron of bubbling nonsense. But yeah, I mean, now I do want to. I am probably gonna pull out yvoorg as a word now. It's, I mean, anytime the young people of Jump City are talking, it's like they're always dropping all of this old time slang. Um, which so yeah, that'll probably be where I bring it out.
Listen, Gotham has Zeppelins, Jump City has 60 slang.
It's 60s like yeah, hipsters. It's if you've been watching your solicits, you'll know that the Mad Mod has set up shop there. Part of the plan is to kind of pay homage to Haney and Freudon as much as possible during this. So the Mad Mod makes an appearance. Think about like anybody those two have had a hand in, and they're on the radar. They're kind of they're on a list I have of like people I want to guest star eventually. Um, in fact, in issue one, which and thank you for not spoiling this. There's, I believe, another Bob Haney special guest star. Um, I'll look that one up right now, but I'm pretty sure it's one of Haney's. Um, you know, this is where having Wikipedia at your fingertips. Oh no, no, not quite. Um, no, this isn't. This isn't it. Oh no, wait. Huh, I've got alternate thing. I think somewhere says it's Haney, somewhere somebody says it's not. Somebody says it's Haney, somebody says it's Jack Miller. Um, more than that, I will not say. That may be too much of a clue.
That's fine.
But yeah. Anyway, um, always room for lots of Haney and Fred and stuff. I'd love to have Aquaman pop in there down the line. I'd love to have or an Aquaman villain. I'd love to have the Super Sons. Just you name them. You name them. I'm thinking of them, but like right now it's the Mad Mod. So that's be prepared for that in issue two.
Mhm. So, starting to wrap things up, with the Metamorpho being released on Christmas, what is the new Metamorpho Day tradition do you think we should all do?
I mean, there's already a bunch of Christmas themed traditions. Like a lot is based around coal. Um, carbon, one of the great elements. Party balloons full of helium. Um, all manner of elemental fun. I feel like the Metamorpho tradition should obviously be going to your comic book store if they happen to be open, or getting a delivery if you possibly can for Christmas Day, and sitting down in front of a roaring fire with your copy of Metamorpho issue one, and reading it cover to cover, and in fact buying several copies of Metamorpho number one to give to all of your friends and family. No other present will do. On Xmas you can have any old present. On Metamorpho Day there can be only one present, and that's a fresh copy of Metamorpho issue one for everybody you know or have ever met. So please immediately start. It's a little late to pre-order, but or is it? Has FOC happened? FOC might have happened, but you can still head to your comic shop at the earliest possible opportunity on Christmas or immediately after Christmas, and yeah, just hand out copy after copy. Make it rain, Metamorpho. Um, Aunts, uncles, cousins, they could all benefit from reading a shiny, fresh new copy of Metamorpho #1.
You've
'Tis
heard
the
it here.
season.
You've heard it here first. Give him a lump of coal and a copy of Metamorpho.
They'll thank you. They'll thank you for one of those.
Well, Al, thank you so much. How can people follow you and how can they support you and your work?
Well, I have a newsletter that's called Al Ewing Writes Comics. It's a little on and off that one because I update it on the weeks I've got something out, and sometimes weeks will go by when I'm just too busy to. However, that is probably the best way to find out what I'm doing. I am on Blue Sky. I'm pretty easy to find. I'm al-ewing.bsky.social. Um, how long I'm there, I'm not sure. Social media being what it is, it's kind of we're all on a foundation of sand over there. I can't say I'm, can't, I was impressed for a while. I can't say I'm that impressed with it these days. But yeah, I'll be if nowhere else, I'll be in my newsletter.
Love to
So that's
hear
the
it.
place to find me.
Love to hear it, Al. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you.